You wouldn't believe how actually easy it is to waste away your life. I'm going to try to approach this video with as much, or I should say, as little judgment as possible, because there's really no right or wrong way to live life, even though a lot of people might shame you or guilt you into believing that there is. But there's a very specific subject, a very specific word, maybe even set of words that I'm going to utilize to communicate how to not waste your life, how to not squander your life. These words correspond with consciousness, self awareness, really knowing the I, the main character that is at play here. It is very easy to waste away your life, and if you are less aware of how your earlier life molded you and the repetition compulsion, the patterns that have pretty much hardwired you to be the way that you are, the likelihood that you're going to get further down the line, get older, and realize, shit, I wish I did things differently. It's much more likely. A lot of people are actually adults that are just repeating patterns from childhood. And let me say this, even if you had the healthiest upbringing, it's very important to consider what I'm about to say in this video because it is my honest opinion, not projecting anything, not suggesting anything, not here to give any unsolicited advice. But it is my honest opinion that the less you know yourself, the more likely it is that you're going to live a life that you find down the road actually didn't consist of what it was that you wanted to. And then you'll just be sitting with regret and you won't be happy with yourself. You won't be happy with the majority of the way that things turned out for you. Conscious self awareness. What is that? How well you know yourself. What is entailed to know yourself to the best ability, with depth, with detail, with logistic, with all of that stuff? Well, probably the first place that you'd want to look at is your childhood, because your childhood molds you. It literally determines the rest of your life until you become aware of it, and if necessary, and I would argue pretty much always necessary, to do something about it. There's no such thing as a perfect childhood. Every child has some, or every adult comes out of childhood with some level of trauma. That's just the reality of it. The best way to waste your life away is to live your life with a lack of conscious self awareness. And when I say that, what I'm really referring to is actually knowing yourself. Because when you know yourself, you know what it is that you actually want, what it is that you actually like. And with that, you can actually consciously separate that away from what it is that you don't like. Imagine if you live your entire life being codependent. And because of that, people that are codependent, they're living in survival. They're just doing things because they don't want people to leave them. They get a majority, if not all, of their identity from other. They're sourcing self from other. So, with that, they're not really grounded with a healthy sense of self by themselves. So, how do you work with that? What do you do in order to actually get closer to yourself? One of the most important things that you can do for that is to spend a fuck ton of time by yourself. Because the fascinating thing is that our minds are basically just these noise machines, especially for people that had unhealthier childhoods with much more severe trauma. Their minds are really just these unconscious, autopiloted machines that are screaming at them left and right. But these voices that are screaming at them are really from other people. So that's why the solution to that is getting yourself alone. If you're codependent, you're really taking direction from other people rather than being self directed. So think about that. If you are codependent, you're much more reliant on other people's opinions. So therefore, you're much more likely to do things that other people want you to do rather than doing things that you want to do for yourself. A lot of people that had much more severe trauma in childhood they're probably more on the unconscious of self side, and they're just repeating patterns that are comfortable and familiar to their survival-based childhood, where they learned the codependency, they learned the people pleasing, they learned to buy into relationships with individuals that are unhealthy. And if that's the case, if you are still just repeating patterns from childhood, the most important thing that you can do, at the very least, is to become aware of it. Because at that point, it's kind of like, imagine you're just like going through the motions of life. You're just doing things over and over again, but you're not even like really aware of it. And then you start to wake up and you're like, oh, wait a second, I actually don't like any of this stuff. Why am I doing this? Why am I appeasing to people that don't even respect me? Why am I people pleasing? Why am I codependent? Why am I so reliant on other people's opinions for my sense of self? I don't actually like to do that. And then the amount of freedom that becomes available to you, the freedom to think for yourself, the freedom to feel for yourself, the freedom to do for yourself. Imagine a life where you don't go out to people and ask them if you should do something. Don't get me wrong. It's healthy to be able to get an outside opinion from somebody that you trust, somebody that actually has a healthy, developed relationship with you. But if you are operating from a place of survival with unconscious patterns that you're just compulsively repeating, the likelihood that your relationships really can't be that trustworthy, the likelihood that the people that you're seeking opinions from are not actually healthy for you and are not actually going to guide you in a healthy direction. Like, let me make this very clear. There are some people out there that are so emotionally stagnated. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just not healthy. But they're so emotionally stagnated that they don't see you as anything more than a fucking narcissistic extension of themselves. Yeah, that's fucking sad. It would not be fun to have a relationship with somebody like that. So, what are we going to do to avoid a life of regret because we realized way down the line that we just wasted it away? Well, it's entirely up to you. But here's what I would do. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels weird, even if it feels like you're stepping into the unknown, go there. Be by yourself. Start to meditate and sit with your thought processes. Become kind of like the bird's eye view of yourself. Examine yourself from afar. Start to ask yourself what it is that you actually like. Audit the fuck out of yourself. Oh, why do I do that? Oh, why do I do that? Oh, why do I associate with that person? Oh, why do I associate with that person? This thing that I've been doing for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, it doesn't matter how long it is. The most important thing is that you recognize whether or not you actually fucking want to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't matter what it is. Because maybe you've just been listening to people tell you what you should be doing rather than what it is that you actually want to be doing. There's a fine difference. And if you're taking advice from people who are emotionally immature, I talked about this in, I don't know if it was yesterday's video or the day before, but it's wild that there are people out there, full grown adults, with the emotional maturity of little boys and girls that are giving people advice on how to be a man. So you're basically trying to fit yourself into this stagnated box that is just a fucking label. The labels don't matter. Get a better understanding of who you are, and that will come with being by yourself. Get really friendly with this. I understand that it can be scary. Get really friendly with this thing. Sit with it, listen to it, talk to it, understand it. There's a lot there. To avoid living a life that might feel like you wasted it later on has to do with being proactive now, because otherwise you'll be reactive later and you'll just be sitting with a fuck ton of regret. Oh shit, I wish that I did that. Oh shit, I wish that I did this. Why didn't I just fucking get uncomfortable for a bit? All I had to do was step into the unknown. All I had to do was be with myself for a little bit. Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, not to be hard on anybody, but all you had to do was, and that's okay. That's okay. It is absurdly, pretty much effortlessly easy to waste your life away. The comfort, the familiarity, the bubble bath. Yeah, who the fuck wants to get out of a bubble bath and go into a ice bath, go into a cold shower that just wakes you up? Oh, what the fuck? What have I been doing all of these years? Why have I been doing all of this stuff? Why? Get to the why. Get to the why. And if the why shows you that you don't actually want it, I don't give a fuck how old you are. I don't give a shit if you're 90. Get to the why. Sit with yourself. It doesn't matter if you've spent decades. The most important thing is knowing yourself. Because I believe that the only way that you're going to live a life that you would probably consider to be not wasted is by knowing yourself to the best of your ability. Knowing the way you tick, knowing why you tick, knowing your curves and edges and everything. This is a process of refinement. You're shaving off what is not for you. And if you came out of a survival-based childhood where you learned to wear a bunch of masks, take them off. And even if it's fucking hard, just keep taking them off. It's about knowing yourself. And the other part of this is that your relationships will get deeper and more rich and more lovely when you do this. But the first relationship that you have to start with is the relationship with yourself.